Deputy Speaker, I rise in this House today to speak in support of the Mineral and Energy Resources Financial Provisioning Bill 2018, a bill that will address the environmental impacts of resource activities and remedy a system that has not been optimal in its function. We know that we have significant problems with abandoned mines scattered across Queensland, such that have been compared to the equivalent of over 10,000 Suncorp stadiums. The existing financial assurance scheme has not been adequate. It hasn't covered the government's cost in managing environmental harm or undertaking rehabilitation when resource companies have gone into liquidation and defaulted on their obligations. Deputy Speaker, the Parliamentary Committee received 51 submissions and conducted a public hearing in March with key stakeholders, including the Queensland Resource Council, Queensland Law Society, WWF Australia, Lock the Gate, the Environmental Defenders Office, BHP, the Office of the Information Commissioner. Can I thank our committee and the Chair and the Secretariat staff in the process? Speaker, mining and resource industries have been an integral part of Queensland's economic success. These industries contribute significantly to the economy, creating jobs and provide support for our local communities. Developing a wide variety of resources naturally found in Queensland, such as coal, minerals and gas for decades, has allowed our great state to prosper. We know that mining activity should minimise impact on the environment, and then we should expect those companies that profit from the land to meet their obligations, to manage their operations, to minimise impacts to the community, ensure that they clean up as they go. There has been extensive consultation on this bill, and it has landed in a place that manages the fine balance of the environment and the economics of the mining and resource sector. It delivers major reform that will ensure a continued prosperous mining industry and an industry that delivers world's best practice in environmental rehabilitation. Deputy Speaker, for the most part, the majority of the mining companies have met their financial and environmental obligations, and this legislation will ensure that those few that don't will not slip through the cracks and will be held to account, and that we embed into our legislation transparency and accountability. Industry and community expressed their concerns on the effectiveness of the financial assurance framework and the cases of resource companies that are unable to complete their rehabilitation activities have further highlighted the issues with the framework as it exists. These issues are significant for the Queensland Government, they are significant for the Queensland community and have resulted in large financial burden for the state and taxpayers of Queensland. Deputy Speaker, these issues must be addressed to ensure the long-term sustainability of this important industry, and this legislation does just that. The bill introduces two significant reforms. Firstly, it establishes an improved financial assurance scheme to better manage the state's financial risk. Taxpayers shouldn't be paying for mine rehabilitation. This innovative new scheme proposed combines the best of worldwide financial assurance schemes to enable the state to manage risk. The redesigned financial assurance framework allows for a tailored and contextualised assessment. It looks at each project and evaluates based on their size and level of risk. It delivers innovation and provides options for assessment to consider pooled fund and surety options, again tailored to considering each unique set of project circumstances. It will free up cash flow for companies to be used for investment instead of locked up in surety. There will be thresholds applied to the pooled funds to ensure its financial integrity. The pooled funds was recommended by the review and provides benefits to both resource companies and to the government. Companies that contribute to the fund will have small annual payments rather than the need to provide very large bank guarantees, and the government will have a pool of funds to draw on to rehabilitate a site when a company has not fulfilled its obligations. Other operators, which the scheme manager assesses as a higher risk, will be required to provide surety for the full amount of rehabilitation liability. For the companies required to provide sureties, the bill provides more options than currently available, such as insurance bonds. The other part of the bill amends the Environmental Protection Act 1994 to implement the rehabilitation reforms. These reforms will ensure land disturbed by mining activities is rehabilitated to a safe and stable landform that does not cause environmental harm unless in the public interest and can sustain an approved post-mining land use. Mining companies with site-specific environmental authority approvals to develop a progressive rehabilitation and closure plan for its current operations will be assessed and approved by the environmental regulator. Progressive rehabilitation and closure plans will be required when a company applies for a site-specific environmental authority for a mining lease, by requiring companies to consider the site's full life cycle and plan for closure from the beginning. And I think that's really important to note, that we're thinking about things up front rather than waiting till the end of a project when the bank is a little bit lighter and funds aren't flowing as freely. Progressive rehabilitation can be factored into day-to-day mine operations, making completion of rehabilitation more likely, and this makes not only sense from an environmental perspective, but economically for companies too. By requiring ongoing progressive rehabilitation, these reforms will encourage improved mine design and encourage job opportunities in developing the mine rehabilitation industry. Communities will appreciate having publicly available progressive rehabilitation and closure plans that demonstrate how mine land will be rehabilitated over a mine's life, and a clear picture of what the final land use will be. Companies with existing approvals will be ensured transitional arrangements for the development of progressive rehabilitation and closure plans from those existing approvals are effective and ensure that the bill is not retrospective, as we've heard blow up in the media last week. In addition to ensuring best practice rehabilitation standards are met and progressive rehabilitation is planned for, the system delivers on transparent community engagement processes and a robust audit and reporting mechanism to track rehabilitation performance. The two parts of the bill are closely interconnected and encourage better rehabilitation practices over the life of the project, while covering the risks to the Queensland taxpayer if it does not occur and the company walks away. I had a constituent in my electorate contact me raising concerns on the bill. Sue stated that she was concerned with the right to information, especially as taxpayers have been repeatedly left to clean up the mining messes when rehabilitation plans and financing have been inadequate. So I'm really pleased to be able to advise my resident that the amendments embed further transparency and accountability within the bill, and that the bill also applies a rigorous public interest test, an evaluation process that will ensure an objective and independent assessment of whether new, unapproved, non-use management areas is in the public interest and should be allowed to proceed. In addition, it ensures that information provided not commercially sensitive is RTIable, and this is the preferred approach by the Queensland Information Commissioner. These reforms in themselves are a huge step forward. It ensures Queensland taxpayers are not footing the costly expense for mining clean-up. These reforms, as I said, strike a fine balance for the industry, ensuring the new scheme is fair, efficient and integrated for the mining industry and for Queenslanders. The Palaszczuk government will always work to ensure the legacy we leave behind for future generations is one that we can all be proud of. Mr Deputy Speaker, I commend the bill to the House.
Mr Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Redlands. I call the member for Broadwater.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I'm going to make a contribution about the Mineral and Energy Resources Financial Provisioning Bill